Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we dig through the research so you don't have to. Today we're looking at something, well, use them every day, but probably don't think about it much. Batteries. Not just the ones in your remote, we're talking about the hidden power sources of, well, everything. You sent us a bunch of info from a company, GreenFlow, about sustainable battery disposal and recycling. Seems like it struck a nerve. What caught your eye?
What gets me is how little we think about what happens to batteries after they die. We just chuck them.
Into the trash, yeah. Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. But GreenFlow, they're highlighting the environmental risks if these batteries aren't handled properly. And we're not just talking AAs here. It's the lithium ion in our phones, lead acid in cars, even those tiny button batteries.
You know, I actually tried to get rid of an old phone battery recently, and it was surprisingly difficult to figure out the right way to do it. Made me realize how much we take this for granted. But what's the big concern with just throwing them away?
Well, each battery type has its own hazards. Like lead acid, they've got lead, obviously.
Yeah.
Heavy metal can contaminate soil and water if it leaches out in landfills.
Makes sense. Lead's bad news.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's lithium ion. Those have been in the news, catching fire if they're not handled or recycled correctly.
Yeah, that's a little scary. So it's not just about keeping our junk drawers tidy, it's about preventing some serious environmental damage, which is where GreenFlow comes in, right? Offering solutions. They're pushing this sustainability and regulatory compliance angle, using words like tailored, eco-friendly, of course, cost-efficient. Sounds a bit like marketing jargon, but I'm curious to see what's actually behind it.
It's easy to be cynical for sure.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is how GreenFlow backs up these claims, like tailored solutions. It's not just a buzzword. They emphasize their ability to handle a ton of battery types.
Yeah.
Each one needs a different approach because of what they're made of.
So they're not just lumping all batteries together. That's good. What about the sustainable disposal thing? Feels like we hear that everywhere these days.
We do, but in GreenFlow's case, it's all about reducing the number of batteries going to landfills. They seem to have a plan to keep hazardous materials out of the environment and then, on top of that, actually recover valuable resources.
Smart. And of course, they want everyone to know about their regulatory compliance. They even offer a bunch of documentation, which I bet is a big deal for businesses worried about liability. But why should the average person care about that?
I think it comes down to shared responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Regulations are there to protect us, protect the environment. By choosing companies like GreenFlow, or at least asking questions about where our waste goes, we're supporting a system that takes this stuff seriously.
Right. It's easy to feel powerless with a global problem like this, but our choices do matter. Speaking of, let's look at how GreenFlow actually does this. They lay out a 4-step plan, starting with a waste assessment.
Yeah. Instead of a one-size-fits-all, they look at what kind of batteries a business has and how many. Again, it's that tailored approach. And then they use that to make a custom disposal plan. How the batteries will be collected, transported, and processed.
Which is where the eco-friendly waste processing magic happens. Do they say what tech they actually use?
They're a little vague on that, to be
Yeah.
honest. They mention advanced technologies and emphasize recycling and recovering materials, but no real details on how they do it.
Keeping their secrets. But they do highlight one very specific thing, a partnership they have. They've teamed up with this group, One Tree Planted. For every service GreenFlow does, they plant a tree. Is that just good marketing or what?
It is a good question. On the one hand, it seems like classic corporate social responsibility, right? Like a feel-good thing to boost their image. But knowing GreenFlow, how detail-oriented they are, makes you wonder if there's more to it.
Yeah, you're right to be skeptical, but what if it's not just about image? Maybe it's about actually trying to offset their impact. Think about it. Transportation, processing, even these advanced technologies. It all takes energy and resources. Partnering with One Tree Planted could be their way of acknowledging that and doing something concrete about it. That's an interesting way to look at it. It's not just dealing with the batteries themselves, but the whole picture of their operations, trying to reduce any negative impact.
Exactly. And it plays into this whole trend of businesses realizing sustainability isn't just good PR, it can be good business. Consumers are more aware of this stuff and more likely to support companies that walk the walk.
Makes you wonder, though, is it enough to really change things across industries? Or is it going to take tougher regulations and a more fundamental change in how we value, well, everything?
That's the million-dollar question, right? GreenFlow's betting that businesses will see the value in this stuff, not just ethically, but financially, too. But it's going to take everyone, from us demanding better to businesses being more innovative and transparent.
And that brings it back to us, right? The listeners. It's easy to get caught up in the latest gadgets, but how often do we think about where those batteries end up? Our old phone, the kids' toys, even those rechargeable ones we think are better, they all have a shelf life.
Totally. We don't think twice about tossing a battery, but when you think about how many we use globally, the impact is huge. And like we talked about, improper disposal, it leads to contaminated soil and water, air pollution, even fires, and that's just the immediate stuff. We're still learning about the long-term effects of these materials building up.
It's a good reminder that our choices have ripple effects, but it's not all doom and gloom, right? Greenflow is showing that sustainability and being profitable can go together.
100%. And that's what I find so interesting, their focus on cost efficiency.
Mhm.
What if, down the road, doing things sustainably is actually the better business decision?
Now, there's a thought. Are we about to see a world where responsible waste management isn't just the right thing to do, but the smart one from a business perspective?
It's possible. As technology improves and recycling and recovering resources gets cheaper, we might see companies like Greenflow becoming the norm.
Which reminds me, Greenflow, they're not just about batteries. They work with all sorts of waste.
Mm,
Hazardous, industrial, chemical, even medical. It's like they're on the cutting edge of a changing industry.
totally. They're not just about battery disposal, they're trying to change the entire waste management game.
It's funny how what started as a look at batteries turned into this whole thing about corporate responsibility, technology, and how we treat the environment.
That's the beauty of a deep dive, right? You never know where you'll end up.
It really makes you think, something as simple as a battery can lead to so many bigger questions.
It really does. It reminds us that sometimes the answers are in those everyday things, in looking at things differently. Who knew batteries could be so important for the future?
It just goes to show there's always more to discover than you think. And that's what we try to do here on the Deep Dive. We take those topics, all that info you want to understand,
No.
and we dig in, find the connections, the surprising stuff, those aha moments that change how you see things.
It's about going deeper, past the headlines and buzzwords, really getting into the details of what matters. Sometimes it's realizing that even small things, like how you get rid of a battery, can make a big difference.
Absolutely. So next time you grab that remote or open your laptop, think about that battery powering it. And remember, its like isn't over when it dies. It's up to us to make sure it keeps going in a way that helps our planet.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into sustainable batteries. Until next time, keep those questions coming.